I oftentimes like to get a animation program going early in the game when doing my programming tutorials, um, and then demonstrate various coding features within the context of the animation. Because I don't know, I feel it's more rewarding to see some graphical feedback than your left brain programmer types who seem to get their jollies by printing some value to the screen. That's just me. Um, okay, so um, I think at this point I might also mention, that I like to, in addition to my other files here, I like to create a scratch program or two to try out things on the side. Because let's say here I'm going to be building on my animation program that I created previously, and I find many times, you'll be trying out things and that might not work, and you go undo, 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 and then oh wait, redo, which that would be Control Y, by the way, in CBM Studio. You can go back as well as forwards. But when you do that so many times, then you sometimes you can't get back to your original file. So that's why I always like to create a scratch file, work things out on the side, and then bring them over into my program. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to copy all that, and we'll create a new file. And I'm going to be demonstrating several different things, I believe, but I'm just going to call this state machine. Okay. And why it has to cycle through every file is beyond me. Okay, then I will paste my code in there, and then I'm back to my original animation file. Okay, so just to rehash, let me run that real quick. And I created a program that animates a character across the screen and then exits. All right, now to demonstrate another quirk of the C64 hardware, if I were to turn this part off, and then we'll just put jump in here to create an infinite loop there. So now it will no longer exit after 40 frames. It should just continue doing its thing. There you see it goes to slot 39, proceeds to 40 on the next line, next line, next line. And then when it gets to 255, zips back to 0, you see. And the reason for that, we're working in 8-bit, 8-bit or 1 byte. And 256 is the maximum value that you can display. You see, I got 1 bit in this place equals a 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, all the way up to, if they're all ones, that's 256, right? So here, if I have both of those are 1, that's 1 plus 2, that's a value of 3, you see. Or this would be a value of 1 plus 2 plus 4, 7, you see. Right? So once it reaches 256, there's no more room in the 8 bytes of memory, and it rolls back to 0. Okay, so that's what's going on here. Reaches 255, flips back to 0 right there. See? So now you have 200, you have 1,000 slots on the screen though, going from 0 to 999. What if I want to draw something down here? If I can't input a value higher than 255, then how do I use the rest of the screen there? Well, here to demonstrate that. What you can do, let me put this back to 40 for the time being. What one can do is here you can add, say, here I'm going to go plus 250. And let me just control shift drag that there and another one down here. And we'll go launch that. There. So now it's starting from position 250. Why don't I just keep looping that jump to loop. Go ahead, turn that off again. Starting from position 250 and going 255 slots down, and when it reaches 255 there, then it jumps back to 250 again. So likewise here, let me go 500, 500. And now it should start in the third quadrant here and draw 255, or let's say 750 here, 750, 750, and now it will draw in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so however I can't, whoops, oh I see here, 750, 750, yeah. Yeah, you get the idea. So I can, from CBM Studio, put a much higher value than 255 here, but I just cannot store a value in assembly higher than 255 for my X value. Okay, so how to do that in code then? Well, clearly I can do these bits of code. There may be a way, I don't know, to do this using least significant bit and most significant bit. If anybody out there watching this tutorial knows of a more efficient, more elegant way to do this, I'm all ears. Feel free to submit some code. That would be very helpful. If you are just one of those people that says, well, you could have done this or that and not supply a bit of code, that is not helpful. That's like 5% helpful, so don't even waste your time. So let us, then I want to create 4 different states then, each drawing that X in a different quadrant of the screen. My goal here, if I should state what I'm trying to do, is to make that diamond start from the very beginning of the screen and cycle all the way down to the bottom. Use up all 1,000 slots. Okay, so I'm going to divide the screen up into 4 quadrants and animate each of those separately. So that is my workaround. I'm going to add a couple extra slots of memory here. Actually, it's not totally necessary because I'm going to end up freeing up some other memory, but just not hurting anything to go ahead and add a couple memory slots here. I can delete, arrow, delete, arrow, delete. Oh, and just to be anal here, I'll put this over here instead. Okay, wonderful. There, so it should still auto launch, and now I have 2 more slots of memory available. Marvelous. Okay, so next step. Now I'm going to have, like I said, 4 separate states, and each of those is going to utilize some bits of code over and over again, such as this timer. So therefore, right off the bat, I want to grab this timer and create a subroutine. So here, let me just pencil in that I'm going to jump to the subroutine called timer. That'll help me mark my spot where I was. And we want to keep the bit where it stores the exposition at the beginning and then reloads it afterwards. So I'm going to grab, I'm not going to need the part where it says erase character here. Let me grab all of this all the way up to where I store the exposition. Cut that. I'm going to go down here to the end of the program, paste it, and instead of this note here, let's just create our label for our timer. So when I call the timer, it'll jump down here, and then at the very end of that, we want to return from the subroutine. There, I've created a subroutine. I am calling it here because I had the foresight to put that there instead of trying to find out where it had been. Let me see if this actually didn't get broken in the process there. There. It's calling the subroutine and doing its thing. Wonderful. Another thing I'd like to do next, I reckon, now I'm going to be using every slot on the screen and it'll be colored white. Here, let me see, here where I store a color value in each individual slot, that's really no longer necessary. I'm just going to get rid of that and instead we'll make all the text white. Should be no problem there. Verify that works. Marvelous. All the slots are white. All white now. Baby, it's all white now. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so the next step is I want to create my state machine, some people call it. And to do that, let me start at position or state 0, I guess. So load 0, and I'm going to store that in STA 2068, I guess. And here I'm going to do something new. I'm going to create a constant, and I'll just call that state, like that. And state equals memory slot 2068. Just drag that down there. There. So, whoops. There. So now I've created a pointer essentially to this memory slot here. Okay, I could do the same with my diamond character, my color position, my blank character, and name them diamond or blank. It might help. It can help make coding easier, you know, that way you're naming your variable, and this is how you do it in assembly, by naming the memory location in which you store the variable. Okay. Right, so next step, I've created my state. So let's create those various states, shall we? Let's see here. I am drawing a character, jumping to the timer, and then drawing the blank character to erase it. So all of this is now going to be one state or another, one of 4 states. So my first one I will call state 0. There. And let me see something here. Oh yes. And so when we're done with that state, we want to go down to the part where it updates the code here. So let me create a label here now, And when that is finished doing its thing, it's going to jump to, watch, if I type UP, it automatically distinguishes that I have created a label there, and I can just hit enter and it fills it in. That helps prevent typing errors. Sometimes you can accidentally mistype some bit of code and you don't know why it's broken. So now I'm going to grab state 0 here and create 3 more states just like it, and call that state 1, state 2, state 3. There. And inside this state, it'll be plus 250. Whoops, I typed minus. There we go. Plus 250 here, plus 250 here. It'll be plus 500. It's just as fast to type it, really. 500 plus 750 plus 750. Good. There. So now each of these states will draw in a different quadrant. Yeah. I might mention at this time, this is a bit more involved video. This time I have taken a moment to define a new hotkey in my OBS screen capture program. So I have a hotkey assigned to pause the video in case I get hung up somewhere and have to figure out where I made my mistake. I don't have to sit there and make you sit there and watch me floundering about. I can just be all egotistical. Here, burn some time. Burn some time. There. Okay. There. I kind of hate being redundant. So this says what each state does. Jump to update. That's pretty self-evident. I don't need to put a comment there. Okay. So now we want to, let's see. Oh, and I don't, let me see, this bit doesn't need to be there really. I can just load my diamond one time, you know, just to have less code than I need, less code than is necessary there. Okay, so it will load the diamond from memory, do its thing, depending on which state is called. Okay, so let's create the part where we call each state. So we want to do that using an if statement, which we covered how to create if statements. Let me see, previously. We are going to do a comparison, essentially. So we will load our state. I'm going to use the Y register for this. Load our state so I don't conflict with the A that I just loaded here. And then we'll do a comparison on that. Whoops. Okay, this is one feature that kind of bugs me. It doesn't recognize state yet here. So I have to go down here, create a return, and go up one. Okay, that's temporary. LDA state, compare Y to number 3. Number 3, branch if equal BEQ to state 3 here, like that, there. And okay, so state is still in the Y memory. I can continue a couple more times. State 2, state 1, and for the time being that should be fine. If none of these are true, it'll just flow over to this one, state 0. All right, so that means, let me just run that, verify if what I said is true. It should flow to 0 because none of those conditions were true. All right, so what if one of them was true now? I'm going to change the state of my program to 1 and see if it goes down here. It does. It's now starting from the second quadrant and continuing from there. And just to be redundant, let's just go ahead and test the other states for errors. State 2 is operational. State, whoops. I'm going to deal with that in a moment. State 3. Lovely. Okay, so now all 4 quadrants of the screen are accounted for. All right, so now what I want it to do is consecutively, when it finishes this state, proceed to the next state, and then the next, and then the next. Okay. So down here, let's see, here's the end of our program. After jump, let me see here, I'm going to compare now instead to 250, because I'm only using that much, and BNE to loop. Okay, so it should, and let me just set this back to 0 for a moment. So now it should go 250 slots instead of 255 and exit the program. I could have speeded up the animation a bit so it doesn't take so long to watch, but whatever. Well, it exits at 250. I'm not worried about it being white. That's another tutorial that we covered earlier. Okay, so that means it's exiting out of here, proceeding directly to return from subroutine back to basic. So what I want to do here, for one thing, now is reset it back to 0. So let me go load X with a 0 and store that in, what's my X value? Here again, you could, what was it, 2065? Oh, I have it down here, 2065, load X. So I want to store X, store the 0 in 265. So now, let me just go ahead and set that back to 40 for the moment. Oops, where is this? Line 72. Oh, I LDX'd and, okay. Reload X position. Oh, I see, I cut instead of copy. Paste. There. Didn't do what I wanted it to, though. I wanted it to, when it exits out of here, oh, okay. I am reloading 0, but not going back to the top of my program loop. There. So when it reaches 40, it resets the value to 0, and now we have an infinite loop. Okay. All right. So next step, what I want, after it has reached 250 here and reset to 0, I want to increase the value of state, inc state. See what happens. Well, would you look at that? It transitions smoothly from one state to the next. So now the only hitch left is when it gets down here, it will increment to a value of 4, which we haven't accommodated for. Okay, so in order to take care of that, up here, let's see, I am comparing, if it's 3, let me also compare if it's 4. There. And if it's 4, I want to reset it to 0 again. So branch to restate, and that's going to go here, restate, and that is just going to load X with a value of 0 and store that in state. There. Okay, so now the part where this flowed automatically into 0 is now broken, so we will go ahead and accommodate that as well, right? So if it equals 0, just skip over restate and go to 0, and let's see what happens. Yeah. Da 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 da. Okay. It gets to 250, transitions smoothly to the next state, which starts over from 0 to 250 in another quadrant. Very good. And then transitions over to the third state, yada yada. Looking good. When it reaches the end of the third state, transitions to the fourth state. And here we go. Here's the moment of truth, folks. Does it work? Gets to the end. Oh, what did I do wrong? Restart to 0. Okay. All right. Here I am going to take advantage of my glorious pause video hotkey and just pause this extremely long video that worked all the way up to the very end, and then there's some blatant error I made, which I will repair and get right back to y'all, okay? My pause key is not working. Well, that's wonderful, isn't it? Why is it not working? Do not tell me. And there's no pause anywhere here on the program. Wonderful, wonderful, just wonderful. Hotkeys, pause recording. Why is it not doing what I just told it to do? Ah, found my error. Here it is. I'm loading X and then storing A instead of storing X. My apologies, folks. I did that exact same thing when I was doing a run through of this tutorial. All right, cross your fingers. Look at that. So it gets to the end of state 3, increments it to 4, and then I have included a check in there that if it is in fact 4, set it back to 0, and the whole thing starts over again. Very good. I'm so happy. Okay, so that is state machines, and also a kind of hack workaround for how to deal with the 4 quadrants of the screen. Again, there might be a way to do this using only one bit of code and taking advantage of most significant and least significant bits. So instead of having only 8 bits, I have 16 bits. That is plenty of room, but I'm not well versed enough to do it that way, so hence the hack. Okay, but at least I got to show you how to use a state machine. So there you go, folks.